Developing news coming out in the last 24 hours as we are hearing that Russia has responded to the United States saying that they are going to be supplying Ukraine with weapons and there's going to be 100% secondary tariffs. Take a look at the latest headlines. Russia already responding back. Russia issues nuclear warning after Trump's weapons for Ukraine plan. You can see this being updated July 17th yesterday. Here's another one. Russia threatens the West with preemptive strikes as NATO looks to deliver Patriots as quickly as possible. NATO warns Russia about seizing territory in Europe as they are saying that Ukraine is just the beginning. They believe that there is going to be more attacks coming against NATO nations after this. And take a look at what other media news outlets around the world are saying. This coming out from Al Jazeera. Trump talks tough on Russia, but will he follow through? Wow. Let me know your thoughts in the comments. Other nations saying they feel like Trump's threats are empty, and we're hearing that Donald Trump said that they had 50 days. Well, here we're seeing just a couple days. I think it's been 2 days since he issued that out, coming out and saying, we don't care. In fact, this is a nuclear threat, preemptive strike warning to you. If you keep going this route, Russia is not messing around. Man, let me know your thoughts in the comments. Do you think that they're going to be able to de-escalate this and end the war? Or do you think that we are going to be seeing things significantly increase and escalate? And right now we're hearing that Russia is threatening NATO and the United States. Russia also, with its allies, has North Korea, China, and Iran that are all supporting each other as well. And we have North Korean troops actually being sent to Russia to fight against Ukraine. Tens of thousands of soldiers being sent. Let me know your thoughts in the comments. Now I'm going to dive into the articles, the video footage, put it on the screen, read right from it so you can see it for yourself. But put in the comments, are we going in the direction of war or peace? Drop your comment. Let me know what you think. And also, take a second, if you haven't done so yet, hit that like button. If you appreciate the news updates, this developing over the last 24 hours, as we're hearing Putin has responded to Donald Trump's statements that I shared with you, 50 days to end the war, or there will be 100% secondary tariffs against Russia, and also the United States is going to be supplying Ukraine with long-distance missiles that they can use to strike Russia. And Putin responding back doesn't need 50 days. About 48 hours responding back and saying, this is your nuclear warning. Man, let me know your thoughts. And I'm seeing war starting to pour into the comments. So let's go ahead and dive right in. Also, if this is your first time here and you want to stay up to date, it's totally free. Why not go ahead and hit the subscribe button? I'll keep you up to speed on everything that's going on. I cite all the sources. They're hyperlinked down below. Put it on the screen. Read right from it so you can see it for yourself and know that this is the latest. But let's start off looking at some video footage so you can see it for yourself. And then we're going to dive into these articles that's going to give us more detail as to what's been unfolding over the course of the last 24 hours.
Just days into President Trump's 50-day peace deal deadline, Russia issuing threats over America's support for Ukraine. The deputy chairman of Russia's Security Council saying, quote, the statements of Western politicians on this topic are complete nonsense. We need to act accordingly to respond in full and, if necessary, launch preemptive strikes.
Meanwhile, top NATO leaders are working hard to get U.S. Patriot missiles to Ukraine.
Preparations are underway. We're working very closely with the Germans on the Patriot transfer, and the guidance that I've been given has been to move out as quickly as possible. Air defense is important on the modern battlefield, and we've seen the scale of recent Russian attacks against Ukraine, so it is a key focus area.
Here with more is U.S. Ambassador to NATO, Matt Whitaker. Mr. Ambassador, thank you so much for joining us. So that comment about a potential preemptive strike by Russia into the West was by Dmitry Medvedev. How seriously is NATO taking something like that?
Yeah. Well, obviously, we take every threat seriously. NATO was built to deter and defend, especially against Russia. So, this is not surprising. But at the same time, I think this kind of reckless, threatening and even trying to suggest that nuclear weapons are an option, I think is, a very dangerous escalation. But, we're obviously prepared for any threat to the alliance, and we'll, make sure that we are always ready for any threat to the alliance.
Ambassador, I know you can't go into specifics, but since Trump announced the 50-day negotiation window, has Russia shown any willingness to negotiate at all? And do you think the transfer of these Patriot missiles will ultimately force Putin to the table?
Well, first of all, obviously, Ukraine needs to defend itself, and that's what President Trump has been clear about. Whether or not Vladimir Putin comes to the table and agrees to a ceasefire and ultimately negotiates an enduring peace in Ukraine, that's up to him. It's very clear that President Zelensky is ready to make a deal and has expressed that. But at the same time, we are providing the weapons necessary. Ukraine has identified Patriot systems and air defense as the most important thing on their list. And so obviously you heard General Grinkowicz, he's moving out on that. And there's a lot of other things that we're moving out on as well. And I think President Trump has created an urgency that we're all trying to meet right now here in Brussels and really across NATO and across the U.S. military.
Yeah, you are coordinating this effort to get these Patriot missiles to Ukraine. So where are we on that? Are there any challenges in getting these missile systems to Ukraine? And what about the backfill?
Yeah, well, obviously, we're working very closely with our allies and with, the industry in the United States that manufactures these systems. They're a high demand, low availability weapon system. But there's so many other things in addition to the Patriots. That's just, number one on the list, especially as you're seeing record attacks overnight in many nights in Ukraine and on the battlefield. But, I want to be clear, Carly, that, since day one, President Trump has been very clear that we need peace, that this senseless killing must stop, that there's no military solution to this war. And at the same time, President Trump has also said that the days of the U.S. sending unlimited taxpayer dollars to defend Ukraine are over. And that's why this smart decision by President Trump and an agreement with NATO, where our NATO European allies together with Canada are paying for these weapons, I think it's just a natural extension of what we saw at The Hague in our summit last month, where these weapons are manufactured in the U.S. by American workers. They're the best in the world. And so this transition that we've talked about before of Europe taking over its own defense and paying for it is America First foreign policy at work.
Yeah. Peace through strength, made in America, paid for by Europe. I don't know if that fits on a red hat, but if it does, maybe the Trump administration
sounds good, though,
should get going on it. Yeah. Ambassador.
There you have it, you guys. Man, let me know your thoughts in the comments. So you saw it there for yourself. More updates coming out. Russia threatening dangerous escalation over the U.S. supporting Ukraine, issuing out preemptive strike warnings, nuclear warnings, and so things have significantly escalated with the threats coming from Russia against the West, against the United States, against NATO. Now, I'm going to dive into the article on this just coming out in the last 24 hours. Russia issues nuclear warning. After we saw Trump supply additional weapons for Ukraine, he provides that plan. So we're going to take a look at that here in just a second. I've also got some more video footage for you, but also wanted to mention my friends over at Lear Capital. If you're concerned about war and what it might do for the U.S. economy, how it might impact things, Lear Capital is providing free information. You can call the number 1-800-411-2430 or go to learram.com, and you're going to be able to speak to a real person that will give you no pressure, no obligation, just free information. If you're interested in diversifying your portfolio into gold or silver, you can see gold historically just going up. It is hitting new all-time highs. Same with silver. So if you are concerned about the economy, our money, finances, what's going to be happening to the United States, call my friends over at Lear Capital today, 1-800-411-2430, or go to learram.com. They'll be able to help you out. So just want to say thank you to Lear making that available. I'll pin this in the comments so you can check them out. In addition to that, let's go ahead and take a look at this now. Updated in the last 24 hours, Russia issues nuclear warning after Trump's weapons for Ukraine plan is revealed. Now, this article says Kremlin spokesperson Dmitry Peskov reiterated that Russia's nuclear doctrine remains in effect on Wednesday, just 2 days after President Donald Trump announced that the United States and NATO allies will supply advanced weapons to Ukraine. So yeah, it was 48 hours. Within 48 hours of Trump's announcement, Russia has responded and said they do not care, and that they are issuing out nuclear preemptive strike warnings now to the West. Now, a spokesperson for the State Department told Newsweek in an email Thursday in response to Peskov's comments, this rhetoric does not improve regional security. We've seen these kinds of reckless and unhelpful statements before. Newsweek reached out to Russia's foreign ministry for a comment via email on Wednesday. Now, here's why it matters. Since Russian President Vladimir Putin's February 2022 invasion of Ukraine, tensions between Russia and the North Atlantic Treaty Organization, or NATO, members have flared, with repeated threats of nuclear escalation. Russia has the largest stockpile of nuclear warheads in the world, followed by the United States. Trump has taken a different approach to Russia and Ukraine than his predecessor, former President Joe Biden, such as more directly engaging with Moscow and putting the U.S.-Ukrainian relationship on the rocks through hostile conversations and aid threats. Earlier this week, however, Trump announced that European allies will be able to buy billions of dollars worth of U.S. military equipment for Ukraine's defense. So the United States will be providing those missiles to NATO, who will be then selling them to Ukraine. So providing weaponry to Ukraine, but NATO will be paying for it. So Donald Trump kind of going a roundabout way, not making U.S. taxpayer dollars pay for support to Ukraine. If you like the sound of that, drop a 47 in the comments. Let me know your thoughts. Now, here's what to know. During a Wednesday press conference, Peskov told a TASS reporter Russia's nuclear doctrine remains in effect, and thus all its provisions continue to apply. The response came after a reporter for the Russian state-owned news agency inquired about the status of the nuclear doctrine, which, among other measures, established that an aggression against Russia or its allies by any non-nuclear state with the participation or support of a nuclear state is considered as their joint attack. In other words, this is being changed specifically for the Ukraine-United States situation. Any Ukrainian state which is not nuclear with the participation or support of a nuclear state, such as the United States, is considered as a joint attack. So they are saying Ukraine attacking Russia is the same as Ukraine and the United States jointly attacking them. They consider it that the U.S. is directly attacking them. That is why they are now issuing out these nuclear preemptive strike warnings. Love Life, thank you for the $5 super chat. Says, I was born in Russia and became a naturalized U.S. citizen in 2003, and I know Putin and Russia very well. Putin has been very patient, but will go nuclear if. Thank you for that, Love Life. I appreciate that. Let me know, do you agree? If you agree with Love Life that Putin's warnings, they are serious, these are not empty threats, put yes in the comments. If you disagree, put no. Let me know your thoughts as to what you think Putin might do. Reading on, the article says, Putin has updated the country's nuclear doctrine in December of 2024, which essentially lowered the threshold to engage in nuclear deterrence. It included that Russia reserves the right to employ nuclear weapons in response to nuclear weapons or other types of weapons of mass destruction against itself or its allies. Peskov called upon the United States to encourage Ukraine to resume peace negotiations with Russia, saying, per TASS, in this case, the main mediating efforts are coming from the United States. President Trump and his team. Many statements have been made, many expressions of disappointment voiced, but we certainly hope that there is also pressure on the Ukrainian side as well. Now, on July 14th, Trump said in the Oval Office, we're going to make top-of-the-line weapons, and they'll be sent to NATO. NATO Secretary General Mark Rutte said the deal included missiles, ammunitions, and air defense. Trump announced that Patriot missiles, critical to defend against Russian drones and missile bombardment on civilian structures, were already being shipped to Ukraine. Any of the military equipment to be supplied to Ukraine in the short term will come from existing stockpiles. So here's what people are saying. A spokesperson for the U.S. State Department told Newsweek in an email statement Thursday, as President Trump has said, the word nuclear should not be treated so casually. Ukrainian President Volodymyr Zelensky on Wednesday on X said, I held a meeting on the defense sector, our domestic weapons production, agreements with partners, and supplies for the Ukrainian army. We are thoroughly analyzing how all contracts, agreements, and investments projects are being implemented. We identified the steps that must be taken in the near future, as well as the key indicators by which the effectiveness of defense management will be assessed at the end of the year. There must be more Ukrainian-made weapons, he said. NATO Secretary General Mark Rutte on Monday on X said, great meeting with the President of the United States today. We're already delivering on decisions from the NATO summit in a major way, bringing together more spending, more production, and more support for Ukraine. Russia's brutality needs to stop. This new initiative will help deliver just and lasting peace. So here's what happens next. Peskov said on Wednesday that talks between Putin and Trump could be arranged very quickly, but noted that there are no confirmed plans. Trump also has issued an ultimatum to Moscow of severe tariffs unless Russia agrees to a peace deal within 50 days to end its war in Ukraine. So, man, let me know your thoughts. Donald Trump issuing that out about 2 days ago, and now we're hearing Putin coming out already and saying preemptive strikes could be on the way. This is your nuclear warning. Wow. Let me know your thoughts. Now, as we saw, they said that nuclear should never be used, but there's major concerns about what could potentially be unfolding here. Now, let's take a look at some more video footage coming out on this, so that way you can see it. This coming out in the last 48 hours of major warnings of what could unfold as things are escalating with Russia and Ukraine. Let's go ahead and take a look.
Former Vice Chief of Staff of the Army and Chairman of the Institute for the Study of War. General, great to have you with us today. That reporting was discussion of, we know part of these defense packages will include, as we heard from the foreign minister in Germany, long-range missiles, which would obviously be able to reach places like Moscow. And the president, deflected that conversation, or his press secretary deflected that conversation about whether he was asking Zelensky if he would use those long-range missiles to reach Moscow. What do you make of this conversation, this back and forth, General?
Yeah, well, I mean, the president really never refuses the opportunity to answer questions, but it doesn't necessarily get at complicated policy issues. I think, in my mind, when I look at what the question asked and then what his response is, he doesn't think Zelensky should be targeting the people in Moscow. That's what I think the issue is here. Mm-hmm. If there's a legitimate military target in the vicinity of Moscow, which Zelensky and his people have gone after in the past, I think certainly that is fair game. So I don't think that's a reflection of a policy issue. It's just the president trying to interpret a question and answer it to the best of his ability. Look, at every weapon that we have given Ukraine and every weapon that the Europeans have given them, they're all used to defend themselves against an invasion force. I mean, they have U.S. F-16 aircraft there. There's actually retired F-16 pilots flying some of those airplanes, Americans. That could obviously be considered an offensive weapon. But the reality is they're all conducting defensive operations against an invasion force. And certainly if there are bases that are providing aircraft, and the Ukrainians can attack those bases where the airplanes are before they fly over their cities and drop the bombs, and they have to wait until they get over the cities to attack them, which one of those is a better answer? I mean, it's obvious to anybody. So we got to think, get a big picture here in terms of what is really happening. Certainly, Ukraine should never, and they have not been limited to only attack something that's inside of Ukraine, when a lot of capability is coming from Russia itself.
All right,
and certainly their logistical infrastructure is fair game as well.
Two quick questions, if I can. You just said that there are retired U.S. Air Force pilots who are flying over Russia on behalf of Ukraine?
No, they're flying F-16s in Ukraine on behalf of Ukraine. I don't know if they go outside of Ukraine or not. I think the reason why they wanted the F-16s primarily because it's a good aircraft that provides good air defense, and the electronic means that it has is very sophisticated. So, yeah, they're part of the defensive structure protecting the people and the troops in Ukraine.
All right. In terms of these drone attacks on Ukraine and how Ukraine can defend themselves against these, it's my understanding that the latest generation of Russian drones has the ability to be undetected over Ukraine. And tell me about how that's going in terms of Ukraine's ability to deflect those incoming drones and these Patriot missiles, and how they will protect their ability to have air defense over Ukraine.
Well, Russia does not have stealth drones, but many drones are susceptible to electronic warfare. In other words, you separate the person that's controlling that drone, the messages that they're sending to them, you jam that. And that's an effective way of taking drones down. The reality is that drone technology, Martha, is advancing so rapidly, it's hard for both forces to kind of keep up with it. You know, as an example, on the front lines, if you're a soldier, you can be seen, you can be killed. If you're a tank, same thing. Artillery piece, same thing. Command and control. One of the things the Russians have done is they started using optic cable wires, very thin wires, that fly the drone out 15 to 20 miles so that it can't be interfered with, because the message is being sent by the wire and not through the air in terms of a radio wave.
Yeah.
The technology is changing right before our eyes here. But listen, counter drone technology is a major issue for the United States. We saw what happened at those bases in Russia. That could happen in the United States to our bases as well. Israel demonstrated very much the same thing with drones against Iran, that they put into Iran, and from Iran itself, they attacked Iran's capabilities. We have to get a counter-drone strategy in this country. And just recently, the Secretary of Defense, Pete Hegseth, has approved that. The Chief of Staff of the Army recommended it. And this is a huge step forward here that we're going to have to form to be able to do that, to take care of our bases and infrastructure in the United States, as well as our troops that are deployed overseas.
Absolutely.
Complicated stuff, to be sure.
It sure is.
But we got to get on with it.
Well, I'm not, it doesn't give me a lot of confidence that you're saying that we're behind in that, and we do definitely have to become more dominant in that field. We'll take your word for it on that, General. Thank you very much.
Hey, Sean Hannity here.
There you have it, you guys. Wow. Let me know your thoughts in the comments. Do you think that Russia is going to do strikes? If you think so, put war in the comments. If you think no, put peace. But right now, we are hearing the warnings that have come out in the last 24 hours. Take a look at this article with me here. Russia threatens the West with preemptive strikes as NATO looks to deliver Patriots as quickly as possible. Medvedev calls NATO's actions a full-scale war, while Trump redirects Patriot missiles and threatens 100% tariffs on Russian oil buyers. Wow, so let's go ahead and take a look at this, get more information as to what is coming out here. Former Russian President Dmitry Medvedev said Moscow should consider launching preemptive strikes against the West as the U.S. and its NATO allies ratchet up defensives supporting Ukraine. The statements of Western politicians on this topic are complete nonsense, Medvedev, deputy chair of Russia's Security Council, said in an interview with the state media outlet TASS, according to Reuters reporting. We need to act accordingly, to respond in full, and if necessary, launch preemptive strikes, he added. Medvedev's comments come just 2 days after President Donald Trump announced secondary tariffs on Moscow by slapping 100% tariffs on nations that purchase Russian oil if the Kremlin does not enter into a peace agreement with Ukraine within the next 50 days. So these secondary tariffs being threatened against Russia, and within 48 hours, we are hearing these threats coming out. Reports also surfaced this week claiming that Trump had mulled the possibility of Ukraine hitting the Russian capital while in a call with Ukrainian President Volodymyr Zelensky earlier this month. Kiev would not comment on the issue, and the White House said the question was taken out of context and was not an attempt of encouraging further killing. Trump this week said the U.S. would be sending Patriot missiles to NATO nations that would then be routed to Ukraine. And on Wednesday, he suggested the sophisticated weaponry was already en route to Germany. Gary Schrieb, thank you for the $5 super chat. This is the first I heard Americans are flying in Ukraine. Putin could take this news as America finally entering the war. He might now strike. Let me know if you agree with Gary, put yes. If you think no, put no. But a lot of people saying that things have escalated significantly, and these are threats directed towards the United States and NATO from Russia. Now, they're already being shipped. Trump told reporters from Joint Base Andrews in Maryland, they're coming in from Germany and then replaced by Germany. And in all cases, the United States gets paid back in full. But the timing of the weapons delivery system and where exactly they are being routed to remains unclear, as a spokesperson for Germany's defense ministry on Thursday told reporters that he had no knowledge of such of an incoming shipment. I cannot confirm that anything is currently on its way. That is not known to me, the spokesperson reportedly told Swiss broadcasting outlet SRF, before noting that a virtual meeting of the Ukraine Defense Contract Group will be held on Monday, when delivery specifications of U.S. Patriot systems will be hashed out. But the quick delivery of the U.S. missile system appears to be a top priority for Washington and NATO, as Switzerland, which is not a NATO nation, also announced on Thursday that its anticipated receipt of 5 Patriot batteries purchased from the U.S. in 2022 with a pledged delivery date to begin 2026 has been delayed. The United States Department of Defense has informed the Swiss Defense Ministry that it will reprioritize the delivery of Patriot systems to support Ukraine, focusing on ground-based air defense, the ministry said in a statement. No statement can be made at this stage regarding the exact timing and any further implications for Switzerland, the ministry added. Clarifications are ongoing. So, wow, potentially redirecting weaponry that was supposed to go to Switzerland, now prioritizing Ukraine at this time. Medvedev on Thursday said the action by NATO amounted to a full-blown war against Russia by the West. What is happening today is a proxy war, but in essence, it is a full-scale war. Launches of Western missiles, satellite intelligence, etc., sanctions packages, loud statements about the militarization of Europe, he said, he told the Russian media outlet. Though the push to send Patriot systems and threats to sanction Moscow are significant, as it is the first time since Trump entered office that he has looked to start actively countering Russian President Vladimir Putin's war efforts, not everyone is convinced it is strong enough. EU leaders earlier this week commented on the length of time the president allotted for Putin despite months of diplomacy failing to yield real action on the battlefield. And we're going to be taking a look at an article here from Al Jazeera. They are skeptical of Trump's threats. Let me know your thoughts. And Zelensky noted that 50 days of waiting means another 50 days of death for Ukrainian citizens. 50 days for us is just every day is scary, Zelensky said in an interview with the New York Post released on Thursday. Putin has wasted President Trump's time, he added. I would very much like to see the United States, the Congress, and the president put some pressure on this situation with sanctions, and so the sooner, the faster it can be done, the better. We would certainly like to speed up this process, Zelensky added. We, for our part, will work to provide more information to Trump, more arguments for strong sanctions against Russia, he said. So let me know your thoughts in the comments. We are hearing that Russia is threatening the West. Now, in addition to that, we're also hearing NATO is warning Russia about seizing territory in Europe, as they are saying that this is just the first phase. So the concern of NATO nations is that Ukraine is just phase 1. After that, they're going to be coming after other nations, which is why they're concerned that Russia just might unleash all-out war on NATO, is because this is just phase 1 of several phases of recapturing parts of Europe. Let me know your thoughts. Let's take a look at this article coming out today, and you can see all of this kind of unfolding in the last 24 hours, this escalation, this response by Russia. Now, this article reads, a NATO commander warned that its forces could capture Russia's heavily fortified Kaliningrad region in a time frame that is unheard of if necessary. General Christopher Donahue, commander of the U.S. Army Europe and Africa, made the remarks as the alliance unveiled a new Eastern Flank defense plan at the Association of the U.S. Army's inaugural Land Euro conference on Wednesday. It comes amid fears that Russian President Vladimir Putin could seize NATO territory, if not stopped, in Ukraine, which Ukrainian President Volodymyr Zelensky and NATO Secretary General Mark Rutte have warned about before. And that is the warnings we've heard from Zelensky. He's going around to all the nations and letting them know, we are just phase 1. If you do not help us stop Russia now, you could be next. This is the message that Zelensky is taking to other nations. Now, here's why it matters. The warnings by Donahue and NATO leaders reflected growing concerns about Russia's intent and military buildup, especially following the invasion of Ukraine on February 24th of 2022 and a series of hostile actions, including cyber attacks and territorial advances. NATO's new posture, built on the Eastern Flank Deterrence Line strategy reported on by Defense News, seeks to shift the alliance from a peacetime to a war-ready footing to deter or repel any Russian attempt to seize territory in Europe. So they are shifting to a more aggressive stance. No more peace talks. They're seeing that Russia is not willing to come to the negotiating table. Donald Trump issuing out this 50 days, saying you need to get peace by then. Russia coming out in 48 hours, saying here is your nuclear threat warning. NATO members face repeated warnings from intelligence and defense officials that Russia could directly threaten alliance territory within the next 5 years, signaling an urgent need for coordination, defense investments, and operational reforms. Now, France's National Strategic Review named Russia the most direct threat to European interests and stability, while Western leaders cautioned that unchecked Russian aggression could escalate into a broader European conflict. So here's what to know. Donahue outlined the new Eastern Flank Deterrence Line, a NATO plan to increase ground-based capabilities, promote allied interoperability, and enable rapid mobilization against Russian threats. The approach prioritized standardized systems, digital coordination, and common weapon launchers, with an emphasis on interoperability and cost-effectiveness. Speaking specifically about Kaliningrad, Donahue said modern Allied capabilities could take that down from the ground faster than ever before. We've already planned that, and we've already developed it, he said. The mass and momentum problem that Russia poses to us, we developed the capabilities to make sure that we can stop that mass and momentum problem. Now, the small oblast, spanning just 47 miles across, is surrounded by NATO members Poland and Lithuania, and has been heavily militarized by Russia since the end of the Soviet era. Russian officials have repeatedly warned that any NATO attack on Kaliningrad would be viewed as a direct assault on Russia, with lawmaker Leonid Slutsky, head of the Russian Parliament Foreign Affairs Committee, threatening corresponding retaliatory measures, including the use of nuclear weapons, according to the Russian state-owned TASS news agency. So here's what to know about Kaliningrad. Kaliningrad is a Russian enclave on the Baltic Sea, separated from the mainland of Russia and bordered by Poland and to the south and Lithuania to the north and the east. Formerly known as Kozenberg, it became part of the Soviet Union after World War II under the terms of the Potsdam Agreement. Today, it is an outpost of Russian power in the heart of NATO's territory and is among the most heavily fortified region in Europe. Kaliningrad hosted significant Russian ground forces, air defense systems, and naval assets, including reported deployment of nuclear-capable missiles, giving Moscow a forward operating base in the region and raising the stakes of any military confrontation. So here's what people are saying. Christopher Donahue, commander of the U.S. Army in Europe and Africa, we know what we have to develop, and the use case that we're using is you have to deter from the ground. The land domain is not becoming less important. It's becoming more important. You can now take down anti-access aerial denial, A2AD bubbles from the ground. You can now take overseas from the ground. All of those things we are watching happen in Ukraine. Slutsky, the Russian Parliament Foreign Affairs Committee, an attack on the Kaliningrad region is a tantamount to an attack on Russia. Volodymyr Zelensky, if we do not stand firm, Putin will advance further. Considering all of this, I believe it could escalate into a world war. Those are the warnings we've been hearing for quite some time. If you agree that World War III could be around the corner or we're already in it, drop WW3 in the comments. Now, here's what happens next. NATO's Eastern Flank Deterrence Line is set to boost Allied land power and digital integration, including new AI-driven data systems and standardized launchers. The initiative aims to enable rapid response, high interoperability, and lower operating costs. Member states have been urged to accelerate defense investments to match Russia's surging military spending and evolving threat landscape. Western governments continue to monitor Russia's actions in Ukraine and along NATO borders. So we are hearing that there is significant warnings of threats. NATO is warning Russia against trying to seize more territory. Russia is issuing out preemptive strike warnings and nuclear threats. And we're going to be waiting to see how things are going to be unfolding here. Let me know your thoughts. Are we going to be entering into war or peace? If war, drop drop those WW3s for World War III. Or if you think that there is still a chance for peace, put peace in the comments. Let me know your thoughts. Now, as we read in the articles, this one coming out from Al Jazeera, Trump talks tough on Russia, but will he follow through? Despite bold threats over oil and missiles, Trump shifts on Ukraine. It may amount to just rhetoric unless backed by credible multilateral actions. This coming out today as well. As you can see, a lot coming out on this in the last 24 hours. Now, on July 14th, United States President Donald Trump teased a sea change in his approach to Russia's war against Ukraine. Trump declared that he would send significant additional air defense units to Ukraine, whose cities are now subject to an average onslaught of more than 100 Russian drones and missiles daily. Leaks from the White House even claimed Trump had inquired with Ukrainian President Volodymyr Zelensky in a preceding phone call about what offensive weaponry Kiev needed to hit Moscow directly. Now, we had heard about this in the previous articles. They said they could not confirm this. Trump also made his most explicit sanction threat to date, posing a 100% secondary tariff on countries that buy Russian oil if the Kremlin does not agree to a ceasefire in 50 days by September 3rd. But Trump's tough talk has fallen far short of moving the dial. Russian officials have laughed off his claims about hitting Moscow. Air defense deliveries may lower the damage from Putin's aerial onslaught, but delivering them in anything like the numbers Trump floated will take many months. Trump's sanctions threats has not moved markets, though such a restriction would amount to an attempted blockade of the world's third largest oil producer. That Trump has shifted his approach to Russia should, however, come as no surprise. Despite Trump's apparent personal affinity for Russian President Vladimir Putin regarding Ukraine and Russia, his view of key U.S. strategic interests is fundamentally opposed to Putin's. Trump wants to export more U.S. natural gas. Putin wants to do the same with Russia's gas. Having lost his European pipeline market, Trump cares about Greenland because he recognizes the importance of Arctic shipping routes in the future, and for Russia, its rival Arctic shipping route is a key factor in maintaining Chinese support. Putin wants to seize as much of Ukraine's mineral resources for Russia as he can. Trump wants to do the same for Washington. Now, having failed in his inaugural pledge to settle the conflict within a day, something he now admits was an exaggeration, Trump's long-standing hostility towards Zelensky, a legacy of Trump's first impeachment scandal, which resulted from the attempt to extort blackmail on the Biden campaign from Zelensky, was eased after Kiev agreed to a long-term strategic alignment with Washington on those minerals. Wow, let me know your thoughts. This Al Jazeera article coming out from the Middle East really tainting the perspective of Donald Trump. Now, if you support Donald Trump and you like what he's doing and you feel like he has been doing a great job trying to help the United States, trying to bring peace, drop a 47 in the comments. But you can see here these foreign news media outlets pouring it on, saying Trump talks tough on Russia, but will he follow through? And then finishing off with a lot of comments that are not favoring Donald Trump. Man, let me know your thoughts in the comments. Drop a 47 if you support Donald Trump and what he's been doing. If not, drop a 46 for the previous administration's approach. But we're hearing that he is trying to push Russia in the direction of peace. And he said, you've got 50 days or you're going to get slapped with secondary 100% sanctions. You're also going to get hit with U.S. missiles that have been sold to NATO that are going to be given to Ukraine. And we're hearing that within 48 hours, Putin coming out and saying, this is your nuclear warning. This is your preemptive strike warning to the West. Let me know your thoughts. And here's those headlines again, coming out in the last 48 hours, updated 24 hours ago. Russia issues a nuclear warning after Trump's weapons for Ukraine plan, and Russia threatens the West with preemptive strikes as NATO looks to deliver Patriots as quickly as possible. So, man, yeah, let me know your thoughts in the comments. I'll be sure to keep you up to date as more information comes out. We're hearing World War III being thrown around again, concerns about a global conflict. Things are escalating just in the last 48 hours as of today, July 18th. 2025. I will continue to keep you up to date, and to stay up to date, hit that subscribe button. And if you appreciate the updates, I cite all the sources, put it on the screen, read right from it so you can see the dates, where it's coming from. Take a second, hit that like button for me. Helps out the channel a ton. And also thank you to today's video sponsor, my partners over at Lear Capital. I'm going to have that information pinned in the comments, free information on investing on gold and silver, which is at all-time highs, and we're hearing likely could go higher. And it's not a bad idea to safeguard your investments, your finances, as we see conflict take place around the world. So that is the latest, you guys. I'll keep you up to speed as more comes out. Thank you so much for joining me, and I'll catch you in the next one. Take care. God bless. This is Steve.